we often get, as I interview lots of people, we often get people that don't have a storied background, right? Going to eXp is something that they wanted to do in order to achieve some of the things you've already achieved. So I'm going to take a hard left here. It's not a question I've asked, but it is something that you've opened up. Why did you move to eXp? Because at Realogy, a great operation, and you were running it quite well. Why did you make that move?
You know, that's a great question, and I love answering this question. I actually, I wasn't challenged any longer in the job that I was doing. I felt as though I could phone it in. And it wasn't, for me, it was not, I need to be challenged myself in order to really just get into something, to wake up and really understand I want to do something that's different. And I listen, eXp was not on my radar at all. I actually met Jason Guessing when we were both speaking at a conference. And I remember we were on a panel and it was on global real estate. And at one point, Jason Guessing is one of the most humble and gracious individuals I've ever met in my life. And I had not known Jason before we both sat on this panel. And they were basically CEOs of very large other brands in our industry. And I was the SVP of Realogy sitting on the panel. And so we go through, and Jason had, because eXp had only opened up Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And at one point, Jason had said, I don't feel qualified to answer these questions any longer about global real estate. And he says, you should probably defer to Michael. We had never met before. Wow. And so at what point in the conversation, people were talking about true disruptors in the industry. And I had known, peripheral information about eXp. And, people were talking about other brands that were disruptors. And I sort of said, I actually think one of the true disruptors in our industry is eXp. And so it wasn't just sort of like, a compliment because he paid me one, but I actually really thought that. And then at the end, he basically came up to me and he said, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, but would you actually ever consider having a conversation about an eXp Global? And so I said, listen, I'll have coffee with anybody. And so we did. And, it was a fantastic conversation. And it was probably about a month before Inman, going back now about 3 years. And then I had met with Glenn Sanford and Jeff Whiteside, our CFO and our founder, of course. And so then we sat down. It was supposed to be a 20-minute meeting. It ended up being a 2.5-hour meeting. And we just sat, created, and played. And I thought that was really, this is fun. This is interesting. This is good. And it just went from there. And it was, they made an offer, and it was interesting because I am born and raised in New York. I spent 15 years in one organization, and it was 10 years prior to that in the other. I don't move around a lot. And so I actually wanted to have a conversation with every board member. And so they allowed me to do that. I actually pulled every SEC filing that they filed and read it. I actually wanted to be very sure of where I was going. And then I came in and I actually met with the top agents that were here and wanted to know why they came over. So I did a lot of due diligence before I came over. And it was, and my accountant, who we went to school together, known him 30 years, he said to me, you're making a grave mistake. He says, you're number 3 at the largest real estate company in the world. What are you thinking? And I sort of said, I've got to follow my gut. And it has been an extraordinary journey. And 6 months after he told me that, we had dinner and he apologized. And he said, you were right. You were right. And so it was